Once again, Sonny Garcia, um, board member with Illinois People's Action, co-chair of Fair Economy Illinois, which is a coalition of organizations that IPA is involved in. Um, Born and raised in Bloomington Normal. Went to St. Mary's Elementary School through 8th grade. High school, I went to Bloomington High School. Um, Graduated from Illinois State University. I've been working there 23 years. And activism, just, just read a lot of books and just seeing injustices. Growing up in this community, I was called SPIC, had friends, most of my friends were white. There wasn't a lot of Latinos in this community. Had some African American friends as well. But just as a little kid being called SPIC, 6 years old, didn't really know what it meant. The person who actually called me SPIC turned out to be a person of leadership in the community that I was directly involved with, and but I never forgot about that. And growing up, my mom was a single mother, really hardworking. Had a lot of background in agriculture. She was a migrant worker, as a child. She was born in Texas, so she's a U.S. citizen. But they were poor, and that's the life they lived. She was pulled out of school in elementary school, like 8 years old, to work in the fields with the family. And so she would tell me about all these stories that she went through and everything that she had to do in order to, provide a better life for her family. She would tell me about, because she was in California during the great boycotts, and so she would tell me about Cesar Chavez and all that stuff, and just how strong that she had to be against misogyny, I guess. And so, men would always try to take advantage of her because she's a woman, she's by herself. So she just had to be really strong and fight back. And pretty much, she's probably the main person that inspired me to do what I'm doing. Just seeing everything that she had to overcome, and then anytime I saw any kind of injustice being placed on someone else, it would make me angry. It would make me want to say something and do something. And she was a union worker. My mom was a union worker. She had actually a really good job at a local meatpacking company. She was a supervisor there, was making decent money. Then Reagan got elected, and Reagan, locked out a lot of the union, and she was part of that. And so when she came back, they locked them out, busted up the union, and offered her a job, same job back, but making minimum wage. Then finally, they just let them all go. They just closed the shop up. I had that sense of, I had a voice. It's like something inside me always said that I had something to say, whether or not I could articulate it at the time or really knew what it meant. I didn't understand it then, but I knew there was something inside me. And so, it really came to my senior year in high school before I really got serious and, started trying to do better in school and applying myself. So when I started to get serious about school is when I started, I knew I had to force myself to read because I really wasn't a reader. And so I would force myself to read, first books about, rock and roll. I think the first book I read was a book about the Doors, maybe Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and just stuff, that kind of, rock bands that I dug, autobiographies. And then because I was really into music, I was, kind of into rock and punk rock, and I was into all kinds of music, but those were, I guess, my heroes, I guess. So I started reading about them, and Rage Against the Machine came out, and they completely changed my life. Just their music is so powerful. It's political. Was saying everything that I felt inside, but I couldn't articulate it at the time. Their second album, called Evil Empire, inside the liner notes is just a book list, a reading list, and I just started reading those books. And those were all the activist books and organizing books that I was talking about earlier. And through the more I read, the more I studied, the more I was able to articulate what I was feeling inside. So I guess that was the genesis of, where I am today. Music has always been extremely important. Growing up, there was always music in my house. I remember we lived with my uncle had like a house and an apartment next to it, and we lived there for a couple of years. And they liked to party, man. They were straight Tejanos, and late every weekend. I mean, it was just loud music. Rancheras, Tejano music, partying. I mean, they'd be partying, and it was just my mom would always play it. I mean, we would before we'd go to bed like every night for like I don't even know. I was like fifth or sixth grade or something like that, and we'd just be listening to Mas, which was this Tejano band from Texas, and every night we would listen to that. And then I started getting. I was into that, but I was also into like rock and everything else. I don't know. It's just music just speaks to you, I guess. I mean, it affects everybody different. And especially rock and roll, speaks to the alienated kid, and I guess that's kind of how I felt at times, and it was just important to me. But then, I was learning and growing more. I guess like 18, 19, 20. That's really when I probably started becoming more politically conscious, and it was a rapper called Kid Frost. Frost is talking about gang life in LA and talking about how brothers are killing each other and how we need to stop doing that. And so it's like I saw like a flip switch in my brain saying that this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. We should be, trying to get, because he talked about getting your education. And it was about the time that I was trying to get serious and really thinking about my future. Talking about social justice, talking about police brutality, talking about drugs and why there's drugs in the ghetto and all that kind of stuff. And even though I didn't live in the ghetto, I mean, I lived in Bloomington Normal. This is suburbia. But, feeling alien as well, no father, Latino, definitely real racism in this town. And just having whatever issues I was having with my self-confidence, it spoke to me and made me, feel a little bit more pride about who I was, and gave me, I guess, some kind of inspiration or some words, some way to think about or figure out how to articulate what I was feeling. And I was feeling, the anger of the racist comments that were made by my friends and their parents, in front of me, and how it was just accepted in this. So I started standing up about that. Rage Against the Machine came out, and the Rage Against the Machine was something completely different. I guess Kid Frost was like the introduction to it. And, I listened to more politically conscious music at that time. As far as hip hop, that's what I was into. I was into politically conscious music. I listened to KRS-One, listened to a lot of Tribe Called Quest. Tribe Called Quest was cool. The stuff that was popular in the early 90s kind of stuff. Public Enemy for sure. But Rage Against the Machine, I mean, they were all within, I guess, that same genre, but I've considered myself like a punk at heart. So was really kind of motivated by like really hard, fast music like Rage Against the Machine. Like, it spoke to me a little bit more. So, I mean, I think Rage Against the Machine, they touched a different nerve, and just the reading list. I mean, just what they were about. I mean, they were on the front lines doing stuff as well. And, the books that I was introduced through listening to their music was important. But yeah, I mean, I've always believed that art is the fuel that drives a movement. Late 70s, early 80s, there was a lot of Chicano pride going on around the country. And my family was part of that. There was some activism going on here in Bloomington Normal at that time. There was a grocery store that was being built. It's closed now. It's called Cub Foods. But they were going to be the first non-union grocery store in town. And so her, as a strong union woman, was out there picketing. And we picketed, I don't know how long it was. I mean, she got paid for it. She was, as a member of the union, that's what they paid her to do, so she was on the picket line. And we were there every day. After school, I would get off the bus and go be with her on the picket line every single day for a while. If anybody who watches this, has some kind of interest in social justice, do a Google search. I'm sure there's a group near you. If not, start your own. But we're going to need everybody.